Hello. In order to understand the beginnings of literary um, evaluation and analysis, we have to consider talking about the three champions of literature, who were Plato, Aristotle, and Horace. In today's lesson, we will particularly study Plato's ideas on literature, because Aristotle, who followed Plato as his student, added much more to his analysis of literature. We will be talking about moral criticism and dramatic construction. The moral philosophical approach that is associated with Plato is as old as classical Greek and Roman critics. Plato, for instance, emphasized moralism and utilitarianism. In that sense, from a uh, from a perspective of moral critic, let's say from the perspective of Plato, an artwork or a literary text can be valuable only if or to the extent of which it is morally acceptable and it is useful for society. Ancient Greek philosopher Plato founded the Academy and is the author of philosophical works that have great influence in Western thought. Plato was a student of Socrates and a teacher of Aristotle, so he was a bridge between what was before him, that is Socrates, and that followed him, Aristotle. His writings explored justice, beauty, and equality, and also contained discussions in aesthetics, political philosophy, theology, cosmology, epistemology, and the philosophy of language. As I have mentioned before, Plato founded the Academy in Athens, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. He founded the Academy in which students explored content areas such as mathematics, rhetorics, argumentation, and philosophy. Meeting the great Greek philosopher Socrates and becoming one of his students, he made use of his teacher's methods of dialogue and debate, which impressed him tremendously. Plato soon dedicated his life to the question of virtue and the formation of a noble character. That's why we consider Plato a member of the founders of the school that we call moral criticism. After Socrates' death, Plato traveled for 12 years throughout the Mediterranean region, studying mathematics with the Pythagoreans in Italy, and geometry, geology, astronomy, and religion in Egypt. During this time, and soon after, he began writing extensively. Plato's theory of forms is one of the most compelling ideas of his. For Plato, we have the real world composed of fire, water, a statue, a drawing, a flower, a cave, a human being, our hands, etc. And also there is another world, the world of ideas or forms. Forms exist independently of time and space. They can be said to exist only as ideas in people's minds. The forms, in that sense, are objective blueprints for perfection. So we have trees in nature, we have fire in nature, but in our minds, there is this perfect image of a tree, there is this perfect image of fire. In that sense, forms, those ideas, in other words, the forms are abstract notions, but they are blueprints for perfection. Forms are considered perfect because they are unchanging. For example, if we have a square drawn on a board or on a piece of paper, the square as it is drawn is not a perfect representation of a square. However, it is only the knowledge of the form square that is in our mental set. The form square allows us to know the drawing on the paper is meant to represent a square. The form square is perfect and unchanging. The form square is exactly the same no matter who thinks about it. But the square we draw, I, you, your parents, and so on, are different, numerous in nature. So in that sense, the square we draw on the board or on a piece of paper is far from being perfect. In that sense, an artwork is not perfect, but what it represents is. Plato's theory of forms is a difficult concept, as you can see. It is difficult to grasp, it is difficult to theorize, and as you have seen, it was difficult for me to talk about it. At certain times I stopped and could not utter a word, could not continue my sentences, because this theory is merely abstract on concrete objects or concrete reality. No object is a perfect representation of the idea it represents, according to this theory. Each object in the real world is a mere flawed representation of the perfect forms they represent, because the forms are perfect versions of their corresponding physical objects. The forms can be considered to be the most real and purest things in existence, according to Plato. If you look at this perfect dog at the top, you see that that is exactly what Plato was trying to say. The dog has a perfect shape. He or she is noble, beautiful, and as you can see, useful. And the screenshot you see at the bottom contains my dogs. Starting from the left, Pachos, in the middle, Heykesh, and on the right-hand side, Pırtık. They are far from being perfect. They are far from being noble. They are ugly representations of that prototypical, beautiful, aesthetically proven form of the dog. So what was Plato's legacy? Plato's impact on philosophy and the nature of humans has had a lasting impact far beyond his homeland, Greece. His work covered a broad spectrum of interests and ideas. He studied and wrote extensively on mathematics, science and nature, morals, and political theory. His beliefs on the importance of mathematics and education have proven to be essential for understanding the entire universe. His work on the use of reason to develop a more fair and just society that is focused on the equality of individuals established the foundation for modern democracy. In order to understand Plato's ideas on literature and art, we should have an exercise. Now have a look at the image of the woman at the top. It is the perfect woman in the world of ideas as proposed by Plato. For Plato, if you remember, every reality, every human reality, every natural reality was a copy of the pure original idea. So if you look at the image in the middle, you see in real life a woman sitting. Now this is the copy of the original. And if you look at the image in the bottom, you see Leonardo's woman as artwork, that is La Joconde or Mona Lisa. So this Mona Lisa is the copy of the original. So I think you can easily figure out how Plato feels about literature and art. It is a copy. It is far from being accepted to be reality. And as you can imagine, because he believed in utilitarianism and morality, a copy of the original is not acceptable. So Plato did not really like art and literature. To be more concrete, we have to consider Plato's ideas on art and literature by connecting it to theory of ideas. Ideas, he says in the Republic, are the ultimate reality. Things, therefore, are conceived as ideas before they take practical shape as things in real life. A tree or an orange, thus, is nothing more than a concrete embodiment of its image in idea. The idea of everything, therefore, is its original pattern, and the thing itself its copy. As the copy ever falls short of the original, it is once removed from reality. Now, art, literature, painting, sculpture, music reproduces, but these reproductions are copies. The first in words, sounds, next in colors, and then the material itself, so stone, sound, etc. So copies, copies, and more copies. These copies are, of course, imperfect because the original image, the original idea is the perfect one. Thus, arts take us away from reality rather than moving us towards it. Therefore, since art serves no useful purpose in society, Plato views art as useless. So in his utilitarian world, art added neither knowledge nor intellectual value. Thus, art is essentially deceptive and potentially dangerous. The whole aim of art for Plato is to deceive human beings. Art is unconcerned with morality because it goes after beauty. Sometimes art teaches immoral lessons, as was the case in the Iliad, Homer's work. To wrap up Plato's ideas on morality and literature, we have to say that for Plato, art was a mediocre reproduction of nature. If art does not teach morality or ethics or values, then it damages its audience, its readers, its viewers, because the pleasures of art corrupt citizens. As I have mentioned before, for Plato, content is always more important than the form. Usually, a Platonic reading or a moralistic reading of a literary text involves two questions. One, what is the moral of the story? Two, does the work of art or does the text help creating virtuous citizens? So understanding and answering these two questions is fundamental to moralistic criticism as proposed by Plato.